everybody, it's Dana Croy, and I'm coming to you from my home office in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and I want to tell you about all the things that I read in the month of February. Now, if you watched my January video, you know that in January I took a little bit of a time off. Now, I read several books, and I made the video, and I was posting in all the spaces, but January is kind of a time of rest and reflection for me. If you have followed me long anywhere in social media world, you know that I follow a little bit of astrology and the Celtic wheel of the year. And January in those times, those spaces are a really great place to be retrospective and a little bit restive. You know, we're kind of told in Western culture that, or at least in America, that January is when we set these new goals and we come out of the gate like really fast. But the reality is the world is sleeping during winter. It's a time of great hibernation and renewal. And it's just a good time to do those things. And so I kind of, went a little bit slower in January. I didn't read as much. I didn't do as much. But in February, things pick back up. The days are getting longer, and, you have a little more energy. It's still cold, or at least it is here in Tennessee for the most part. But I read a few more books. I want to tell you about them. So the first one that I read, and I'm going to show you here on my Kindle. So, Murder in the Mistletoe Shop. So I have talked about Magda Alexander before. She's the author of this story. Last month, I reviewed Murder in Paris by Magda Alexander, and these were the Kitty Worthington stories. So Kitty Worthington is this great character, and I've watched her evolve from book one. So she came home from finishing school in Switzerland, came back to London, knew she did not want to get married, despite the fact that, she had her season and she was the superstar of the season, and everyone wanted to date her until they didn't, until she got caught up in a little bit of drama with her brother. But she persevered, and she came out on the other side. And she's such a great character because, to me, she embodies that spirit of women during that time when they're allowed to do more things and to say more things and to hold more responsibility and to control their destiny a little bit more. So we've seen her evolve. We get here into book 11, which is, again, Murder in the Mistletoe Shop. And one of the things I love about Kitty is she is so close to her family. So her family is wonderful. They're very supportive of her. She's close to them. Then they've developed this group of friends that they surround themselves with that are really fantastic. And I love that. And here it is Christmas time in London, and Kitty and Robert cannot be, for reasons that have to do with Robert's brother's health, they cannot be with her family at her brother-in-law's estate. And so this is their first Christmas together, and it's their first Christmas alone. So there's a little bit of a bittersweetness to it, but thankfully there was a murder, so they got caught up in that, which was really a good thing because it took her mind off of some of it. And it was none other than Robert's best friend, Hollingsworth. So I've talked about him before. He's a little bit of a rogue. He's devilish. He's a bit of a pirate, and he gets caught up in some intrigue, and he's, of course, accused of murder, and Kitty and Robert come to his defense. But I love Kitty. I love these stories. Magda Alexander is a great writer. She doesn't take shortcuts. She paints some beautiful pictures, and I love that, right? Because I want to imagine the car, and I want to know what she's wearing, and I want to know what their hair looks like. I want to know that Robert is dashing in his tuxedo, and, that Hollingsworth has hair flopping over, or whatever it is. I love, love, love these stories. So, I want to encourage you, if you have not read Magda Alexander, if you have not read Kitty Worthington, you want to do this. If you love a strong female sleuth, but with a little bit of a romance and some love built in, these are the stories for you. There's the intrigue of that time period between World War I and World War II. A lot of the mysteries that I read that have the female sleuths, the women were, like a little bit older, and they were active during World War I. So maybe they're still working for Whitehall, or they are they developed some skills during World War I, and they're getting a little older and a little more mature. Kitty Worthington is on the other end of that. So, she just came back from finishing school, and there's some, it's that middle period between, well, actually, this is 1924, so this is not long after World War I. So she wasn't involved in World War I, but she's getting caught up in some of the intrigue from it. And I really love it. This is a great book, great storyteller, and I highly recommend it. So that is my first review for February, is Kitty Worthington and Murder in the Mistletoe Shop. What else did I read? Okay, so let's talk about Lee Strauss. So I just read Lee Strauss's newest book, which was, let me open it because I keep saying it wrong. Murder at the Cave of Harmony. So I'm going to talk about that, but I need to backtrack a little bit. Do you ever read a book and you think, I'm missing something, but you can't figure out exactly what it is? So I did an advanced reader copy of Lee Strauss's new book, and I wrote a review about it. And the whole time I was reading it, I felt like I had missed something. I felt like there was, so there's a character. It is Ginger Gold's new assistant, and her name is Magda. And I thought, who is this Magda person? Where did she come from? Did Lee Strauss just throw her in out of nowhere? And it was driving me bonkers. But I wanted to go ahead and get this book read and get it reviewed as it was being released, because I'm a huge Lee Strauss fan. But after I did that, I went back into my book history and realized I did miss a book 2 books ago, and it was Murder at St. Paul's Cathedral. And it's book 24 of the Ginger Gold. I'm sorry, I'm looking over here because I have a lot going on all the time, and sometimes I have to refresh my memory. So this was really cool. Felicia, who is Ginger Gold's sister-in-law, was in this. And this is when, and again, I knew I had missed something. So there's a book in between, which between Murder at St. Paul's Cathedral and the new book, the jazz book, there's Murder at the Olympics. And that was a really great book. But again, I felt like I missed something. And I don't even know how this happened, because in that particular book, Felicia has joined her husband in the intrigue, some of the spy work. And I'm like, how did we get here? Well, I figured it out. We got here through Murder at St. Paul's Cathedral. So in this book, Felicia and her husband, they're really the whole story, really Felicia. It's such a great story. Felicia's grandmother, the Dowager Lady Gold, she had a little bit of an indiscretion as a youth. And her son was actually someone else's child and not her husband's, who was Lord Gold. So that's kind of the premise of the story. And there's someone attempting to blackmail Felicia, definitely doing some bad things out there. But this is a story where Felicia really finds her own. She's such a strong character anyway, and she writes murder mysteries, and she's got this great husband and this great life. But something's missing for her. She's lonely. I think that this is I think Lee Strauss, when you read stories, especially cozies, you don't necessarily think that you're looking for threads of life, of real life, right? We read these as bits of escapism. We hope that the authors have done due diligence and have good information to back up whatever their story is. Lee Strauss does these things, but I also think Lee Strauss did a great job at, sort of looking at women's plight in general. So whether it's during that time or now, so Felicia's husband, he's a lord. She knows that he's in Parliament, but she doesn't know he's a spy. So he's gone all the time, and she's very lonely, and she's suspicious, right? So at first she thinks he's having an affair, but she's worked for Ginger Gold, and she can do some snooping and realizes that's not the case, but she can't quite figure out what it is. She thinks he might be a spy, but she's not really sure. because she's caught up in the intrigue, and the intrigue really surrounds her, and there's a murder that happens that also has to do with her, she figures this out, and she convinces her husband to allow her to become a spy with him. And it's such a great story, and it goes into her creativity. You know, she's a writer, she gets a job at a newspaper, she develops her own film. How cool is that? I mean, I think that is pretty cool. She's sort of a, she's not afraid to try new things and to break out of the norms of society. And I love that. And those are some of the things that are woven through this time period that I think I love. I don't just love the clothing and the hair and the hats and the cars. I love all those things and the decor, but I love what women are doing during this time period. And that's why I come back over and over again, I think, to this time period. Lee Strauss is a lot of fun. If you are not following Lee online, you should do so. She really goes into depth about the clothing, and she posts on her Facebook page a lot of imagery, a lot of photos and art from the time period that she writes about, and you can really see it and where she draws her inspiration from when she describes the clothing. So Ginger Gold, I don't know if you haven't read these stories, you don't know, she owns a clothing store, an upscale clothing store. At first it was just one of a kind, you know, designer pieces. There's a seamstress there, but then she realized that there's a place for sort of off the rack pieces that are a little bit less expensive, a little more attainable. And so she has that. So there's a lot of clothing involved in the Lee Strauss books. And on her Facebook page, she shares a lot of that, and I love it. But that leads me to, and I actually wrote a review about this. I have not reviewed all of these books, like typing them up on Goodreads. I'm working on that. Ooh, it takes a lot of time, right? So Murder at the Cave of Harmony. Murder at the Cave of Harmony was a great book. I'm not going to say it's my favorite of Lee Strauss's, and I'm not sure why, but I think I have enjoyed pretty much all of her books, and Murder at St. Paul's Cathedral was maybe my all-time favorite. That was such a good book. But Murder at the Cave of Harmony was really solid. It's really well written. It is her newest release, and if you're a Ginger Gold fan, you know you have to read it. And I do think the books are standalone books. I think you can read these on their own. So Murder at the Cave of Harmony, Ginger, Basil, they get invited to a friend's birthday party. There's a jazz band, and the saxophonist, I believe it is murdered, and the murder is based on a book Felicia was writing but had not released yet. But someone overheard her talking about the book in a writer's circle and mimicked it to kill this jazz player. I'm not going to tell you a whole lot about this one because it is a new release and I want people to read it. So I'm not going to go into depth about it because I don't want to spoil it because it just came out. Okay, so that brings me to, and I talked about this in January, the Benedict Brown books. So there's a spoiler alert here. So in the second book that I'm going to talk about. Okay, so Benedict Brown. I said this in January and I'm going to reiterate it. The first Benedict Brown book that I downloaded, I didn't get too far in it. I started reading it and I eventually put it down. He's a great writer. I don't know what it is. I could not get far into this book. And I'd said in January when I reviewed his other books that I don't know if he's a male author, if that put me off. I don't know if the book was slow. I don't know if it was my headspace. I mean, it could be anything, right? It could be I wasn't in the mood to read it. But when these Marius Quinn books came around in front of me, I really liked the covers. And sometimes a cover needs to capture my attention for me to start a series. And I liked the covers, and so I picked it up. I read the first two and fell in love with this character and Benedict Brown as a writer. The first one was Murder at Everingham Hall. The second one was the Hurtwood Village Murders, and they were such great reads. And so I downloaded, he's got 4 books in this series. I downloaded them all. I devoured them. I read 2 at the end of January and 2 at the beginning of February. So let's talk about those, the 3rd and the 4th. So the Castleton Affair, that was a great book. So Marius Quinn, they are hired to find according to the Amazon review, a missing civil servant. And there's this lovely young woman who's looking for her fiance. And of course, she thinks he could do no wrong. It's a great, it's another great kind of spy read from that time period that ties these European intrigues together leading up to World War II and or after World War I. And I don't know from a political standpoint, you know, there's like 20 years between them, but at the same time, I don't know that there was ever an end to all of that intrigue in Europe when they thought that they were at peace. I think there was probably a lot of behind the scenes things going on for a really long time. So The Castleton Affair, an excellent book. But I want to focus on Bella and Marius in the book. And to me, that's the important part. I mean, so I'm not a big romance person, generally speaking. I like rom-coms. I like watching them. But generally speaking, I'm not a big romance person. I'm probably not going to sit down with a romance novel. My daughter loves romance novels. She's discovered romance novels. She loves them. And she's a big Colleen Hoover fan. To me, the value of the story is this tension between Bella and Marius. And I am just biting my nails to see what's going to happen between these two, because they are obviously madly in love. He is madly in love with her. It was his high school sweetheart. He went off to fight in World War I. He broke it off with her before he left because he thought he wasn't going to come back. He came back and he didn't call her. He's an asshole, right? He's just a jerk. I know that sounds awful. He had probably PTSD. He came back and thought, I broke it off with her. I'm a terrible person. And she moved on. But I don't think she wanted to. I think she's still in love with him. And I love that in this book. And that brings me to the spoiler, which is A Body at the Grand Hotel. This is a fun book. So Marius is invited to a hotel to be the guest speaker at an author event, and all expenses are paid, and he's going, and then Lady Bella says, well, I want to go, and his mom wants to go, and his aunt and uncle, and so and the dog, of course, the dog goes, and so everybody goes, and they go to this, to this hotel in Torquay, which I am now obsessed with because I've read several other novels that take place there. And so I'm totally obsessed with looking it up online and going there. So they go there, and really what he's invited to do is to be like the village idiot. So they want to humiliate him and prove that he really can't solve any mysteries. Excuse me. What they don't realize is they didn't do their research and didn't know he had actually solved 3 murders in real life. He wasn't just a murder mystery author. So the lady who planned it all to humiliate him, because she does this apparently, she gets authors there and humiliates them. She, of course, is the person who's murdered. So she's this, horrible person, really deserves to die. She's one of those people that you don't mind. You don't mind that they were killed. You don't. You know that she's a horrible person, and you do not mind that she's the person murdered in the book. So Marius, of course, he's trying to solve this murder, and all the shenanigans ensue. It's a really great book. It's a great story. I did kind of figure out pretty early, or kind of thought I knew who the killer was, and I was right. But this is where the spoiler is going to come in. And if you don't like spoilers, then don't go any further. I'm serious. I'll put in here where the break is if you want to fast forward. But at the end of the book, Bella's fiance is murdered. It doesn't have anything to do with the plot line, okay? Nothing to do with the plot line of this book, of the Mrs. Thistlethwaite that is murdered in the swimming pool of the hotel. Has nothing to do with any of that I'm aware of. It does have to do with, and I'm sorry, I should have backtracked on this, the murder of Marius's father. So Marius's father had disappeared 10 years prior to this, and he is trying to figure out what happened to his dad. And he's been peeling back this onion, trying to figure this out. And actually, I'm probably going to circle back to the other story of his, the Castleton affair, because I did leave a couple of things out. But this is somehow, Bella's fiance being murdered is somehow tied to this. And I feel really bad for Bella, because I think she loves him, but I don't think she's in love with him like she's in love with Marius. And of course, I'm excited that he is murdered, because it opens a door for Marius and Bella eventually to get together, if Benedict Brown writes it this way. And I think, for me, this is one of the reasons that I've enjoyed these stories so much. I don't know Benedict Brown. I'm following him on Instagram, and I'm reading these books, but it's unexpected. I expect this from some of the other writers that I read, but this romantic tension that is woven through these 4 books in this way, and then this cliffhanger in this 4th book, which is The Body at the Grand Hotel. I was not expecting this whatsoever. And I love to be surprised. Now, I don't like to be surprised like somebody jumping out and scaring me. I don't watch horror movies. I don't read Stephen King. I don't like to be surprised in that way. This was a surprise. This was a pleasant surprise. It was a good book surprise. So I did really enjoy that. Thank you, Benedict Brown. And we need to talk, I said in my last video, because I want to know what's next, and I need that next book like yesterday. So if you can work on that, that would be fantastic. The Castleton affair, sorry, I had to pull my thoughts together. Sometimes we do this in midlife. So this was the one where they think they are going to be helpful and solve a kidnapping, and it all goes awry. But they find out within the context of the story that some of this is connected to his father's disappearance. It keeps bubbling up. This is, to me, one of the Benedict Brown is a really great storyteller. So I talked about Magda Alexander's a good storyteller. She is, and Lee Strauss, and within those stories. But this is like a soap opera. When you have these threads that weave through, it's like a soap opera, and it's so much fun. So that's what we're dealing with here with Benedict Brown and the Marius Quinn mysteries. And if you like that kind of thing where there's this, constant weaving through, then you are going to like these books, and I really recommend them. What else have I read? I have another book that I read. Let me see if I can pull it up really quickly on my Kindle. So I don't just read cozy mysteries. I have another genre that I love. Let me see. Where are you? Where'd you go? Which are the cozy paranormals. And right now I'm really obsessing over all the Tara Lush paranormals. And let me see if I can open this up. I had it ready to show you guys. And now, of course, I can't find it on my Kindle. Goodness, where did it go? Huh, that's really weird. Let me look at it this way. Weird. It's disappeared on me. But anyway, Serving Up Hex, which is Tara Luch's most recent Cozy Paranormal. So I'm going to be reviewing some Cozy Paranormals on their own. I just finished that book. What else did I just finish? I just finished Murder on the Cornish Coast last night. So that is a Helena Dixon book. Great story. Those are the Kitty Underhay books, if you like those. I've got some new Cozy Paranormals that I'm going to be reviewing that I'm reading right now. And I just had an author send me an ARC, and I'm going to review that next month. So that's another Cozy mystery. And I'm just having so much fun. Thanks for letting me come into your space and tell you about everything I'm reading. And I hope that you have some great books that you're reading that bring you a lot of joy and that are giving you some stress relief during some kind of crazy times. And I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in the social media channels. Oh, and you're invited, of course, to, like and follow me online, but also to sign up for my newsletter. I have run a newsletter for about 10 years through my other business, and I am making some shifts to it and rebooting it for my bookish space, and I'll drop a link in here where you can sign up to receive it. So have a great day. Bye-bye.